major regional controversy is unfolding in Barbados. Remember when I talked about free movement happening last month? Well, the Democratic Labour Party says the government's plan to open Barbados' borders to CARICOM nationals next year may actually be legal. How? Well, let's get into it. While the administration is calling it a step towards Caribbean unity, the opposition says unity still has to obey the law. And well, the Mia Mottley administration recently announced that citizens from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Belize, Dominica, and Barbados will be allowed to live and work freely in between each country, beginning October 1st, 2025, under a new reciprocal arrangement. But the opposition leader, Ralph Thorne, is calling that decision, and well, I quote, tainted with illegality. Why? At a press conference on Saturday, Thorne said the move did not receive prior approval from Parliament, and therefore it has no legal standing. Even a Prime Minister who believes she's all-powerful is still subject to the rule of law, he said. This announcement exceeds her legal powers. It is an arbitrary exercise of authority, and only Parliament can make it lawful.
Correctly pointed out, as a former foreign minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, I would have spent 10 years understanding the challenges that the member states of CARICOM faced as we sought to put in place the structures, the systems, the processes to ensure the advancement of the ideal of free movement. And it is critical that we appreciate that this process, there has to be a translation of ideas and ideals to domestic law and to domestic implementation.
Thorne explained that both the immigration and citizenship bills are still under review by the Joint Select Committee on Governance. So, until those laws are officially approved, he says any action by government agencies would lack a legal foundation. This initiative cannot be properly implemented without legislation, he said. We therefore caution government departments, including Immigration, the Barbados Revenue Authority, and the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, not to act on what has no legal basis.
I do not need to be an expert in labor relations to tell you that as myself and other candidates of the Democratic Labour Party, and certainly the leader of the opposition, when we move around Barbados and we have the opportunity to speak to constituents, to voters, we are not short of comments where young people, one of the first things they say is that we need employment. Now, the employment numbers at the fourth quarter of 2024 reported by the central bank were below pre-pandemic point, will be just by pre-pandemic rates at 7.7%. And then for the first quarter of 2025, it was reported at 6.3% unemployment rate. Now, this is a good employment rate, but what we want to inform the Barbadian people that a low employment rate can also exist when there's underemployment and a dearth in terms of skill sets meeting the jobs. You have a situation where the Office of the Government reported 5.4 thousand persons that were underemployed in 2023. And if you extrapolate that to a labor force of just about 123,000 in Barbados, that means that you have 4.4 persons that are underemployed in Barbados. So I repeat, while we can have a good rate of unemployment in Barbados, that can exist with other issues that when you hold up the hood or you look a little deeper, you can see that there are other issues with employment in Barbados.
So, also speaking at the briefing, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator Maxine McClean, drawing on her years of regional experience, McClean warned that political statements alone are not enough. I quote, as she said, It is essential that we translate the idealisms or the ideals of regionalism into domestic law and implementation, she said. Free movement cannot occur at the whims and fancies of politics or without the necessary legal structures. She also raised tough questions about citizenship by investment programs, particularly in Dominica, where between 2018 and 2024, the number of passports
emergency
issued
and primary health
reportedly
care.
exceeded
So it is
applications.
critical that we appreciate the implications of the situation of various countries. It is not a question, and I use the word that people like to toss around, it's not a case of us being xenophobic. It is a case of us understanding that if we are to offer to our people across the region and in the domestic space, so to speak, we have to understand and plan for within the framework of the requisite legislation. And so I think that as we look at this, it is necessary that we have articulated for us a clear process of the steps, but more importantly, in a situation where at least one of the member states in this initial 4-member group has a broad category or a large number of persons who have become citizens by investment, that we understand what rights and privileges accord to these persons. And I think that I will flag that as an issue that has not been articulated to my understanding. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me.
Her question was simple but sharp. Are these individuals who became citizens through investment programs included under this new arrangement for free movement? And if so, what rights and privileges do they carry when entering Barbados? McClean stressed this isn't about fear or hostility, but about respect for legal process and a full understanding of the policy's implications.
If they intend to reside and work here, the next steps are clear. They are guided to register with the Ministry of Labour, with the National Insurance Scheme, and with the Barbados Revenue Authority if they intend to work, as is the case with all Bajans. Once we are working, we work and register at the National Insurance Scheme, and we work and register at the Barbados Revenue Authority. Even if you pay no taxes, you register and file. They will also be directed with respect to national registration and obtaining national identification, which is necessary in any event to register at the National Insurance Scheme and at the Barbados Revenue Authority. Now, some of you have asked, will we be safe? My answer is yes, because the law and the systems are clear. First, the law of our community, as dictated by the Caribbean Court of Justice, has long set out a number of clear principles. Any government may refuse entry to a person who poses a genuine threat to national security or is likely to become a burden on the public purse. Equally, any government may refuse entry to a person on the basis of public health concerns, as we learned recently, all of us, in the COVID-19 pandemic. These principles remain in place. They are the guardrails of responsible regional integration. And believe me, when I tell you that they will be applied should the need arise.
Adding to the discussion, attorney at law and DLP candidate for Christchurch South, Corey Greenidge, he offered a detailed legal breakdown of the government's draft immigration and citizenship bill. Greenidge, he pointed to discrepancies between the legislation's text and the Prime Minister's public statements. He said the DLP supports efforts to boost the labor force, but Barbados must address its housing, healthcare, and employment challenges. Then he turned to what he called a troubling clause: the plan to reduce the qualifying period for citizenship for just 6 months. Once citizenship is granted after 6 months, he said individuals should become eligible for vote. He continued, we must ask whether this policy is driven by national interest or by a political expediency. Opposition leader Thorne closed the briefing by reaffirming that the DLP stance is not anti-regional, but rather it is pro-law. We're governed by a constitution, not by decree, he said. Regionalism must advance through the rule of law, not political shortcuts. The DLP is now encouraging Barbadians to closely follow the Joint Select Committee's review process and also to take part in the public consultations. Thorne made it clear that if the government should proceed without seeking Parliament's approval, the DLP will consider seeking judicial review. And as October 2025 is now here, one question still looms on everybody's mind. Is this new free movement policy a bold step towards unity or a legal overreach that could undermine Barbados' constitution? I'm Whitney McKoy reporting for the African Diaspora News Channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Should Barbados move forward with this free movement plan, or should they wait for Parliament to have the final say? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Share what you think, and let's have a discussion. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and most of all, stay connected.